Howdy friends, thanks for clicking on this video, and the title's pretty self-explanatory. If you hadn't seen the video that I recorded at the Santa Fe Trail Rendezvous 2025, I just want to re-acknowledge and thank my friend Broken Feather for bringing me some grapevine. He brought me some pretty good sized pieces, and as you can see, it's pretty gnarly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all of the bigger pieces into smaller, more manageable pieces so that I can get rid of all of the outer bark and the inner bark so that I can get right down to the white wood, because I just want to be able to, remove any dust or contaminants that might be associated with the outside bark and the inner bark. When I get all of that accomplished, obviously I'm going to char it up. Charring process is the same. I will get all of this charred up, broken up, and then I will do my normal routine of showing what 15 grams of grapevine represents in those clear jars. So I'll see you then. So for the benefit of those who attended my seminar at the Santa Fe Trail Rendezvous, I discussed a little bit about charring your material and not to overchar it. You want it just so that it goes from the brown to black. And if you look at these pieces, you can see that a lot of it is just right there. I'm going to go ahead and pulverize what I can right now, and then whatever does not pulverize will go back into the can and continue the cooking process. And I'll go ahead and show you how I pulverize this in just a moment. So I have half of that container in this PVC tube. It's 4-inch, glued on bottom with a rubber cap. And the media that I'm using is lead round ball, various sizes, and it's my 60-40 mixture. For every 60 pounds of lead, there's 40 pounds of tin, so I don't have to worry about any lead dusting. And in my opinion, I think lead dusting or some of the rubber you get out of the rubber containers is maybe a little over exaggerated, but that's my personal opinion. So what I'll do is I'll just keep working this, and I'll empty it out and capture all of the charcoal that I managed to remove from the pieces. I only have about half of that container in here, so it's going to take a little bit to get this finished. So just a precaution, I know there's some guys on YouTube that char up their wood and then they put it in a blender. But if you end up doing what I do, getting it just so that it turns black and still brown, these solid pieces will probably hit the blades and bust through the sidewalls of your blender. Just a precaution. Well, look who stopped by for a visit. I wonder if that's a baby tarantula. Almost looks like one. Cool. So this is how I capture the powder. I'm actually getting to the end of this batch, but I just run everything through a strainer, and whatever falls through is what I capture and use. I don't think you guys can see it, but I don't really have a whole lot in there, so I'm getting down to the point where I need to put that back on the fire and char it some more. But that's what I've yielded thus far. Alright, I'll see you in a few minutes with the specific gravity test. Okay, here we are. Here's the control, Willow, 0.39 specific gravity, and that's how much volume 15 grams occupies. Next to that right here is the Aspen, 0.45, and that's what 15 grams is represented in volume, how much space it occupies in that glass jar. To the far right is Sycamore, 0.49, and we can see what 15 grams in that jar looks like. And obviously, last but not least, here's the Grapevine. That's 15 grams. We can see how much space that occupies in that glass jar. Now we know from past experience, Willow burns dirty. I've shown that Aspen burns clean and Sycamore burns clean. And based on the volume of the Grapevine, and like a lot of you have commented underneath my YouTube channels, Grapevine burns clean. And that's going to be my prediction. Now, out of all of these jars of charcoal, the Grapevine is the only one right now, presently, that is filtered. For those of you that attended my seminar, the Santa Fe Trail Rendezvous, before I put any charcoal in my tumbler, I always run it through a micro filter, such as what painters use to strain paint. I do this just because all three components are refined and they tend to blend a little easier the finer you can get your powders. Alrighty, I need to make another comment or two right here, and then I'll get to mixing these up. So I want to take a few moments right here and relay some of the comments that I heard during the seminar on making your own homemade black powder. And as this audience is very well aware of, I always do test burns with the gunpowders. This particular rendezvous, I set aside some of the gunpowder that I had milled at 6 hours, 12 hours, 18, and 24, and 30, and then everybody could observe the difference in the burn rate. 6 hours compared to 30 hours. It's very observable to see the longer you mill your gunpowder, the better and faster it's going to burn. But during this seminar, I always like to take factory gunpowder and do a comparative burn test. And what I did is I took 777 and let everybody see how slow that does really burn and how dirty it is. And then on the other side of the block, I compared it to Swiss. Now these blocks have been shuffled around quite a bit, but if you look real closely, you can still see that smoky residue. But when I passed this particular block around, some have noted the little white specks that were left behind immediately after the burn. And somebody had made the comment, so is that what's being left behind at the end of my barrel? Because I always see these little white specks when I burn Swiss. And I said, more than likely that's what's left behind, because it's left behind on the block. And obviously, if you've watched this channel long enough, you will have seen me burn with a torch a pile of KNO3, potassium nitrate, and you see how it all bubbles up. This is what's being left behind. And if you compare that to what I've made as far as homemade black powder is concerned, I don't get those little white specks left behind. So people are beginning to understand and realize that Swiss is not the cleanest burning gunpowder out there. In fact, during the closing ceremonies, another shooter came to the person sitting right next to me, or two persons down, who shoots Swiss quite a bit out of a cartridge gun. The feller had a handful of patches, and I heard him state, and I kindly asked for one of the patches. He was shooting Swiss this rendezvous, and he has never seen his patches burn a hole like it did right here. And every patch that he had in his hand was burnt completely through. And I also heard him say, based on what he is observing with his patches, he's going back to Schutzen, because with Schutzen, it burns cleaner than Swiss, and it doesn't burn through his patches. Now I know that's probably going to upset some people out there that think Swiss is the best of the best, fastest of the fastest, and all that. But when you make homemade black powder and you do these comparative burn tests like what I've been doing on this channel, you can obviously see, even by observing my lock on my flintlock after shooting Swiss, it is not clean burning gunpowder, and it does leave little white specks behind. So with that being stated, I certainly appreciate the comments that others have observed regarding Swiss, and they shared those comments with me. And it just basically validates, not in a biased way, but it just validates what others are observing regarding Swiss. And I've heard, more than one person say, I'm going back to Schutzen because it's cleaner than Swiss. And some have asked, what do I think is causing that? I think it's the heavy graphite glazing, and there's not enough oxygen in that burn to consume all of the powder, gunpowder, and the graphite glazing. Take it for what it's worth. I know that I've demonstrated and I've talked quite a bit about the heavy graphite glazing, but it's just nice to know that others are observing it also. Alright, I'm going to get this gunpowder milled up, get it pucked up, get it ground down to size, and I'll see you out at the shooting range. So I just want to show a comparison between this grapevine tumbling for 14 hours, and if you recall, after just a few hours in the previous batch of gunpowder with the Siberian elm, it was already caked and compacted to the bottom of the tumbler. Once again, 14 hours, and it's not caked yet. Here's the spoon, and you can see it's still very powdery. So it just goes to show that when it comes to tumbling, some of your woods, the charcoals, are going to compact very quickly, whereas this grapevine, I'm going to probably be able to get the full 36 hours tumbling out of this. So I just ran it through the screen, did nothing more than just use the media to work it through, and you can see she's not balling up yet, even in the bottom of this container. It's my opinion, it's not finished. So here's an early burn test. Once again, been milling for 14 hours. I kind of want to see if we have an early indication if this will be clean burning. I very much suspect it is, based on comments that I received underneath my previous videos making homemade black powder, and then also based on the volume of potassium nitrate to the volume of charcoal. I very much suspect this will be very clean burning. A little slow right now, but you would expect that from the powder. Let me give you a close-up. So looking at the block, you can see for yourself, it's pretty clean burning. No smoky residue, and as far as the little chunks of KNO3, they're completely non-existent. There's the finger. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. All right, we'll see you in just a few moments. Here's 18.5 hours. Now you can tell it went up a little quicker, and it looks like the burn is still fairly clean. All right, continuing on. So just a quick note, this gunpowder did not start clumping up until about the 24-hour mark. It's 30 hours right now, and you can see most of the media is sitting on top. So I'm going to strain this, grab 20 grains, and we'll do a burn test. And hopefully you can see at 30 hours, working it through the screen of just the media, it's all balling up. Alright, let's take a close-up look at the block. Well, there you have it. I'd say that is very, very clean. Probably not even worth doing a wet finger test on this. This stuff just might outshine peanut shell. Wouldn't that be a kick in the groin? Stay tuned for the 36-hour burn. So as you can see, we're here at the 36-hour mark, and this gunpowder is clumped up really, really good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this strained through, and then we'll do the burn test. So for the purpose of this burn test, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I've got 30 grains of powder here, just as it came out of the ball mill, worked through that screen, because what I want to do is I want to see comparatively how clean this burn potentially is going to be, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to burn my blended gunpowder, 30 grains with peanut shell and alder. I wish I had just peanut shell by itself, but I don't, so I know it's not a fair comparison, but I just want to do a comparison. That went up real quick. Let me get you close up. So there's the block. 30 grains. It's pretty clean. It's pretty clean. Little wet finger. Once again, you would expect this at being, charcoal being the fuel source. It's not really all that bad. Alright, on the other side of this block is where I'm going to do the comparative test with peanut shell alder blended, and it will be 30 grains, but bear in mind this 30 grains has already been grained and sized. So let's just see what it does by way of comparison. So there's the peanut shell alder blend, 30 grains. Pretty clean. A little bit darker. But like I thought earlier, grapevine would be a little cleaner. So now that I've wiped off both sides, this is the peanut shell alder. That's the grapevine. Peanut shell alder, grapevine. I would dare say the grapevine burns a whole lot cleaner than the peanut shell alder blend. So, I'm going to get this all pucked up, sized, and I'll do another comparative burn test. I'll get another block of wood so that we can compare, and then we'll go out and see what sort of numbers we can record through my chronograph. So here's our 30 grain burn test. It's been pucked, grained. Again, my typical 2-3 blend with some 4F in it. Let's see what it does. That went up quick. Let me show you the block. So because it's windy outside, I decided to show you the block inside here. In my opinion, that's very, very clean. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Again, it's a charcoal, so you would expect it. But I'm trying to look beyond that. Yeah, it's a little dark, but it's wet also. The ultimate test will be what does it do in my flintlock as regards loading. See? But there's today's burn, cleaned off a little bit, and then this was the burn just out of the ball mill at 36 hours. So by way of comparing, it's pretty clean. I mean, it wiped off really clean, real quick. No presence of KNO3, which shows it's been thoroughly consumed. And I already took the liberty to weigh out 80 grains, settle it in my powder measure, and I'll show you, if you can see it, where it rests. It's pretty doggone close to 80 grains. And that's without the benefit of a graphite glazing. Not bad. Not bad at all. So for all you guys that have been leaving comments underneath my videos telling me how clean grapevine burns, you're absolutely right. It's very, very clean burning. I wish I had some peanut shell to compare it to. I'll just have to go back on this video. On my channel, I mean, and see if I can find the video burning peanut shell and just do a comparison that way. So I'm anxious to get it finished. I've got some more pucks drying right now on the dashboard of my truck, so I'll have to get all that ground up, sized, and get out to the shooting range. Just hold on for a minute. Real quick, there's the first patch. Yes, it's a little breezy. Starting temperature is 84 degrees. $17.79. Well, that patch, as you can tell, shredded to pieces. But it's fairly clean for shot number 2. Alright, I'll get you another number. $17.93. Well, there's that patch. It's not shredded, but I did go to an 18 thousandths patch. But it's no more dirtier than anything else. That's the side that went down the barrel and sat on top of the powder charge. It's pretty clean. $17.91. Well, there's that patch. Not really any more dirtier than anything else. 1820. Well, I managed to recover that one, number 5. All in all, it's pretty clean. It's about as clean as anything else, or as dirty as anything else, depending on what your perspective is. Alright, go mark off the target, get everything packed up, and we'll crunch some numbers over in my shop. So before I get on to the rest of this story, I want to backtrack a little bit because I had observed this in my previous video, the gunpowder I made with Siberian elm. If you haven't seen that video yet, it shot very clean as far as the patches were concerned, but if you had watched it, you noted that I had made a couple comments that it was difficult to load. And I think that's because of all the crap that it was pushing down the barrel. Now, it wasn't until after I edited and got that video uploaded and had lunch on that day that I decided to run a bore light down that barrel. And I mentioned this to my friend Broken Feather, that it was very, very dirty. You could see clumps of powder. In my opinion, it was the powder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my bore light down this barrel and for myself make a mental note, because I remember what that barrel looked like, and I'm going to compare it to this. So let me get that down there, and I'll turn the camera down the barrel so you can see for yourself whether it's clean or dirty. And just remember, that was 5 shots also. If I can hold it steady enough, I think we can all appreciate that that barrel is clean as far as burning black powder is concerned. And I can attest to the fact that that other barrel with Siberian elm was filthy dirty, and that's why I was having problems loading it even after the first couple of shots. So to correct my previous statement regarding Siberian elm, would I use it again? Yes, but it wouldn't be my first choice, so I'm going to correct that. After dropping the bore light down this barrel with grapevine and remembering and comparing it to what I saw with Siberian elm, I won't ever be making gunpowder out of Siberian elm, especially when, you know, I have peanut shells available, grapevines you can get anywhere, and or the juniper that's on this property. So how did the grapevine gunpowder group? Well, there's the target. Not bad. If I was aiming at a heart of a deer, I think I'd have made meat. Alright. How do I feel about grapevine? Well, it's darn good gunpowder. Burns very clean. I showed you the inside of the barrel with the bore light down there. It's clean. But how does it compare, say, to my peanut shell? Well, the first shot down a clean barrel with grapevine was 1841. My first shot with peanut shell down a clean barrel was 1826. So what's that difference? 15 feet per second? That's really nothing to brag about. But what I do want to think about in this perspective is the spread. With the grapevine, I had a spread of 62, and with peanut shell, let me get to my notes here, I had a spread of 34 over a 5-shot average. So for me, at least, based on the spreads, my first choice would still be peanut shell. It may not be faster than grapevine, but 15 feet is, like I said, it's nothing to really brag about. It's really not. That 15 feet's not going to make the difference whether you survive the shot or not. It really doesn't. So anyhow, I think I want to leave it at that. I want to thank everybody for watching this video. I hope that you'll give it a thumbs up and share it with your bestest of buds. Bye.